Here's your wrestling news for September 26, 2021. And your headlines for today include: Bryan Danielson addresses fans who are upset he won't bash WWE. Reason why Vince McMahon got angry at Daniel Bryan in WWE. Wrestler missed in-ring action due to bad reaction to stem cell therapy. Big E says he's the right person to retire Old Yeller Goldberg. Ex-Retribution wrestler debuts as Crocodile Dundee type gimmick before WWE SmackDown. Former WWE wrestler claims WWE cleared Edge to prevent him from going to AEW. WWE bringing back American Gladiators television show. Current WWE wrestler claims that the WWE draft is holding up his stand-up comedy plans. Why WWE brought Riddick Moss back before draft. WWE adds city name to banned words list. Health update on Jake the Snake Roberts. 5'2.5" and weighs about 165 pounds. Wrestling veteran has some harsh words for the demon Finn Balor. John Cena to star as U.S. presidential candidate in new movie, and more. We are kicking off today with AEW, who have never shied away from bashing WWE, with both ex-superstars and those who have never worked for Vince McMahon taking shots at the competition. One person who's broken this trend is Bryan Danielson, who not only isn't dragging WWE, but is openly admitted to being grateful and has highly praised Vince McMahon in recent weeks. This has caused some fans to be annoyed at Bryan for not attacking WWE, and in a sit-down interview with the Sports Illustrated Media podcast, Bryan argued that those upset with him are part of a wider problem. He said, "I think there's a tribalism in our country right now, the narrative of being on one side or the other. And I think most people are actually very rational and will enjoy both sides, but I think the harder edges, and those are the people who tend to speak out more." Bryan Danielson is very happy in AEW, and there's been speculation that he could be the man who dethrones AEW World Champion Kenny Omega. But despite being all elite, the former WWE champion isn't going to be taking shots at his ex-employer. Bryan has been openly grateful to WWE and Vince McMahon for what they did for his career, but their relationship wasn't always so pleasant. In that same interview, the AEW star recalled a time when the chairman got very angry at him in what would be WWE's last pay-per-view with a crowd for a very long time. "I was wrestling Drew Gulak at Elimination Chamber right before the pandemic. I took a German suplex that went a little bit wrong and I landed on my head. When I got to the back, Vince was so mad at me and he was like, 'It wasn't anything about the performance.' After he got mad at me, I said, 'Was the match okay?' 'Yeah, the match was great, but you can't do that. He doesn't want me to get hurt.'" Danielson went on to say that he understands how Vince's anger came from his love and concern, but it's never good to get your boss upset. After WWE cleared Bryan to wrestle in 2018, the company was consistently concerned about his health, and though it's great that they wanted him to be okay, it caused a tense moment at last year's Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. Recently, Brian Cage made headlines when his wife complained about his spot in AEW, and this week, he featured in the Chris Kanyon episode of Dark Side of the Ring. Last Saturday, Cage was supposed to work at the Battleground Wrestling event in Philadelphia, competing against Buddy Matthews, but Cage didn't appear to wrestle the ex-Murphy in his first post-WWE match. The Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that Cage's knee was flaring up after he recently had stem cell treatment, and there's currently no window on when he'll return. In his place, JC Navarro filled in to face Buddy Matthews, but that didn't keep fans from missing the former FTW champion. During the show, Matthews still called out Cage for no-showing, and we can only hope this match eventually happens when Cage is able to get back in the ring. In 2016, Bill Goldberg returned to WWE on a lucrative Legends deal that's seen him become a two-time Universal Champion. Goldberg's matches are often hit and miss, with many fans simply tired of seeing the Hall of Famer in action, and it seems Big E has a solution in mind. Speaking to Hot 97 Radio, the WWE champion said that he is the best option to be Goldberg's retirement match, and added, "Who better to retire him? Who better to take him out to pasture, take Old Yeller behind the barn? We'll see. I just feel like I would be the right person to send him on home, give him his walking cane, and say, 'Thank you for your service.'" This isn't the first time Big E has said that he wants to wrestle Goldberg, and with WWE's tendency for giving Bill huge title opportunities, this match seems more likely now. It's unknown if WWE have any plans down the line for Goldberg vs. Big E, but after a career asking who's next, the reigning WWE champion may indeed be who's last. Over to SmackDown next, as Shane Thorne was quietly moved to the blue brand earlier this year, but is yet to appear on TV. The last fans saw of him, he was Slapjack in Retribution, but now Thorne has a new character that builds on his Australian heritage. Thorne competed in a dark match prior to this week's SmackDown and debuted a new gimmick with clothes resembling Paul Hogan's title character in the Crocodile Dundee film series. The new character clearly worked as Thorne defeated Austin Theory, his first victory in WWE since the January 11th main event taping where he defeated Humberto Carrillo. This was a huge surprise for the fans in Philly, and many might not have even recognized Thorne as the same guy who was in Retribution. And we'll have to see if this leads to a return to TV for the Aussie superstar. One name fans can see on SmackDown is Edge, who will return next week in his first appearance since being curb-stomped by Seth Rollins. Edge's return from retirement in 2020 was nothing short of miraculous, but it's a decision that WWE allegedly had to make. That's at least what Matt Hardy believes, as during an appearance on the MCW cast, the AEW star claimed that WWE had ulterior motives for letting Edge return last year. I think if they hadn't cleared Edge and let him wrestle, he was going to end up at AEW, so they kinda had to go, oh, if we don't want him to go, we have to let him have his way. It's quite the accusation that WWE cleared Edge to avoid him going to AEW, given that clearing Edge with his history of neck issues was a very risky and difficult decision. With the Hall of Famer returning next week, it looks like he'll wrestle Seth Rollins again soon enough, but that match would have never happened had Edge jumped to AEW last year. Now, WWE is involved in many projects, and Vince McMahon's company realizes there's money to be made in nostalgia, as a classic TV show is coming back thanks to WWE. Deadline reports that WWE and MGM are teaming up to bring back American Gladiators, which first premiered in 1989 and still has a cult following. In the report, it says the two parties will present a reimagined version of the hit non-scripted reality competition, but didn't clarify what changes will be made. With a roster of athletes, WWE could always lend some superstars to take on the contestants, as the possibilities are endless for the new, revamped show. Next month, WWE will host its annual draft, which is causing problems for one superstar in particular. Not only a superstar and a two-time former world champion, but Dolph Ziggler is also a stand-up comic in his free time, but can't make any shows as of this time. On Twitter, the show-off explained how he isn't booking any events until he knows whether he'll be busy on Mondays or Fridays after the draft. WWE doesn't really let superstars know what brand they'll be on before the draft, as they like to get the organic, natural reaction from talent on the night. This may make for great TV, but it's also playing havoc for Ziggler, who's waiting on WWE to announce their decision before he gets back to stand-up comedy. One person eligible to be drafted is Riddick Moss, who returned on this week's SmackDown just 1 week before the annual draft. Given that Moss could have had a big return as a draftee next week, many have questioned why WWE had him return last night, and Fightful Select report, when Fightful inquired why within WWE, it was told to us that because he never appeared after the draft last year, and there's another next week, there was no harm in getting the ball rolling on Moss with Corbin. Their report adds that Moss impressed during a dark match in Knoxville last week, and despite being drafted to Raw last year, had quietly been moved to SmackDown. Last year, Paul Heyman had big plans for Riddick Moss before the former was removed as Raw's executive director, and time will tell if the former 24/7 champion will have a better chance to shine now that he's aligned with Happy Corbin. It's no secret that WWE have a list of words that are banned on their programming, which commentators and superstars have to carefully avoid using at all times. These words range from criminal intent, such as kill, murder, or stab, to insider terms like jobber, babyface, and being over. This week, WWE rolled through Raleigh, North Carolina, but fans noticed the name wasn't uttered on TV, in what was a deliberate omission, according to Dave Meltzer. On Wrestling Observer Radio, he explained that Raleigh is now on the banned list, as WWE's belief is that the city's name doesn't sound prestigious enough. Sometimes WWE will avoid using a city's name if it doesn't feel like a big enough location, and will often use the name of the venue instead. Founded in 1792 and named after famed explorer Sir Walter Raleigh, the state capital of North Carolina has a rich and vibrant history, but that doesn't mean they'll be mentioned on WWE TV anytime soon. This week, we reported that Jake the Snake Roberts was suffering from health issues, and we now have an idea as to what's keeping him from AEW TV. Cassidy Haynes of BodySlam.net has learned that the WWE Hall of Famer has undergone foot surgery and had pins inserted in some of his toes. Jake's doctors have recently cleared him to return to work, and Roberts could be back on AEW programming as early as this coming Wednesday's Dynamite. Roberts has been with AEW since March 2020 when he confronted Cody Rhodes to say that Lance Archer was coming to the company, and it may not be long before we see the Snake Man again. More from WWE as Finn Balor will look to regain the Universal title he had to vacate in 2016 at Extreme Rules tonight, but he'll face arguably the most dominant Universal Champion of all time, Roman Reigns. Reigns' tenure as champion has been nothing short of phenomenal, which explains why Balor is channeling his inner demon to fight the Tribal Chief, but even that hasn't convinced some people he has a chance. On the Sportskeeda Extreme Rules prediction video, Kenny Bolin didn't hold back about Balor's chances, saying, No, the demon is 5'2.5", weighs about 165 pounds. Demon or not, unless he's got some superpowers like fire coming out of his hands, or maybe he spits the mist or something, no. He's still a 5'2" demon and weighs about 165. I have Roman Reigns. Bolin suggested that Balor use underhanded tactics like spitting the green mist to get the upper hand, but otherwise won't have a chance at becoming Universal Champion. Balor vs. Reigns is, as of this moment, the only match with an extreme stipulation, but all the weapons in the world may not save the demon from acknowledging our Universal Champion. And we're ending with John Cena, whose movie career has seen him play everything from a friendly bull to a not-so-friendly superhero, and now Big Match John is entering the world of political thrillers. In a report from Deadline, Cena will join Kathy Bates as rival presidential candidates in The Independent, and we'll see Jodie Turner-Smith and Brian Cox play journalists uncovering a conspiracy that threatens the fate of the election. The movie is scheduled to begin filming this November in New York City, which could put Cena in town for Survivor Series 2021, which will take place from the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. This is just the latest big movie project Cena's been tied to, as the 16-time world champion star continues to shine in and out of the ring. Well guys, that's our news for today. Please share your comments below. Also hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to receive all notifications. And as always, thanks for watching.